Some stories entertain us, some stories stay with us. And then there are some stories that ask us quietly to question the world around us. And those are the stories that have the power to transform us. Welcome to AIM Storytellers Spotlight, part of our Inspiring Conversations podcast, where we talk about how culture brings us together through stories and how all these stories connects us as humans. My name is Ekta Bajaj, and I'm a storyteller myself and a publisher and a curator of the AIM Literary Festival. I have with me a very special guest today. I'm going to give you a little introduction to her. I'm joined by award winning filmmaker Nathalia Syam, a director whose work is deeply rooted in emotional realism and human complexity. Through films such as Footprints on Water and Lehenga, Nathalia explores lives lived on the edge of visibility, crafting stories that transcend borders. Working across both the British and Indian film industries, Nathalia brings a rare sensitivity to storytelling, one that blends social realism and with emotional depth. So, Nathalia, welcome to AIM Storytellers Spotlight. And this is a place where I will not just understand your world, I want to understand the way you see the world. So, um, going to go a little deeper into what makes you you, in fact.
Okay,
And so we'll start from the beginning.
sure.
And do you remember the earliest memory when the thought of coming into this field of storytelling came in your mind?
Okay, well, firstly, thank you for having me as a guest, Ekta. I love your podcast. I love the stuff you do. I love the work you do
Thank you.
outside with with your contribution towards the literature world. So it's a privilege and pleasure to be here with you today. And thanks for that lovely introduction as well. I feel like I feel like I've always been drawn to the whole concept of storytelling, especially growing up in Kerala. So I was born in Kerala, and we moved to UK. My parents decided to move to UK when I was around 10, and me and my sister Neeta, who's also a writer, who was a writer of Footprints on Water, we all moved as a family. And I think at that time, I didn't really have it in my mind that I want to be a film director, or I wanted to work in this field as such. But I feel um, being brought up in Southall, which is where we came to, we saw a lot of stories around us. So I think a simpler answer to your question would be the circumstances that you're brought up under, the stories that you see around you. I feel sometimes it's so strong, like the story we discovered in Footprints on Water, which is the lives of undocumented migrants around us. I think that was our sort of main mission in bringing that story to life, and I think that kind of made us storytellers. And now that I've made it, and now I've been working in films for many years now, I don't think there's anything else that I could do other than this. I don't think there's anything else I'd be good at. So it just sort of stuck, though it's a tricky field to be in.
So I'm always very intrigued by this whole idea of sharing a part of your world through stories. And I do feel that, the way we grew up, the culture that we grew up in, it just shapes our emotional questions so much and shapes the way we see a situation. They could be an event and 100 people will see that event and interpret something completely different from it. So I just want to understand how much has your culture, where you grew up, influenced your way of seeing stories, or how much has it blended into the stories that you tell, and how much was it a part of your childhood?
I really love these questions. I don't think I've been asked these before, and I really love that it's making me think a lot
Yeah.
about it. So my so I think my sort of roots in storytelling has a lot to do with my mother. She's a writer.
Okay.
She's an artist herself. So my mother's side of the family in Kerala, they're into the film industry, and so my uncle is an actor. My grandfather was a director, actor, as well as he was in politics. So growing up, I'd seen film sets, and I'd seen the whole process of storytelling. And I used to be a little child actress for commercials as well while we were in Kerala. So I think all this has definitely added a flair of curiosity in
Mm.
our mind. But when we moved to UK, you know, it was a different sort of a life to what we had expected when we moved, and filmmaking and film directing and all wasn't even in our mind. It was more about survival, you know, how to find a job or how to do something where we could um you know just blend in with the world and just live by, you know. But I feel the curiosity definitely came from that. I think my mother especially, she's very expressive. I feel like we have these I feel like as a family, you know, if something were to happen in our daily life, for
Yeah.
example, I've been told so many times that I add masala to my stories, you know. So like, say if something, it could be a very sweet interaction between two people, but I come home, you know, I live with my partner and our best friend. So I tell Raj and Pradeep, okay, this happened, and then I sort of say sort of the narrative very dramatic around it, and they always say, did this really happen, or are you adding masala? I don't think I'm adding masala. I think it's just the way I perceive world, because I like
Mm.
the storytelling, and this is how I was brought up. My mom would tell us something that happened outside or in the market, and it would be like a story, and I think that shaped the storyteller in
Mm.
us subconsciously. And I think this is the first time I'm exploring that answer. But now that I really think about it, it definitely has to be the way we were brought up and kind of being encouraged to be a storyteller. Kind of, you know, my mom would always push us to talk in public, to kind of express how we really feel. And I think that really helps from a childhood stage to not have your wings clipped and to be really expressive with how you feel. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and to not be called dramatic and just actually add some drama to what you're
Yeah, because
saying.
life can be boring. Just have fun, you know.
And is there any particular movie, any particular book that you remember, any anecdote from your childhood that you remember and you think, yeah, I mean, this has stayed with me because, you know, when you're growing up, you watch a scene. For me, it's a particular scene I've seen in one of the horror movies. I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was Amol Palekar, and it's just remember that. And that has stayed with me. And I now know why I'm so drawn towards stories that have more depth.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, is there anything for
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. I think there's a lot of. I used to like a lot of comedy films, like
Okay.
especially Malayalam films, and some of the films that my, like, you know, Mohanlal films and Mammootty films, Mukesh films, who's my uncle, and I feel like any space that can really make you really laugh or cry or connect with the stories is it's a truly special place.
Mm.
As you said in the introduction, you know, I too believe that film, as a medium, is so powerful. You know, it can entertain, it can educate, it can, certain stories can really stay with you, especially in my adult years. Some of the films that I've watched, like like Close, which is a Belgian film from 2022 about two teenage boys, or, you know, some certain social realism films, or even if you look at films from Francois Truffaut, who is,
Mm.
you know, one of the fathers of realism. You look at 400 Blows, or, you know, you look at Ken Loach films, or you look at Cleo Barnett films. There's a lot of films with social realism that even after days of watching it stays with you, and I'm bothered by it. I'm like, why? But why did this
Yeah.
happen this way? Or you know, you can really relate to certain characters. I think all these, as an experiment, shapes the filmmaker in a person. It makes you
Mm.
question the world around
So
you, and I
in
love
that
that.
sense, as a child, you were already drawn towards stories that had the sense of social realism,
Absolutely.
and you were questioning things.
Yeah, because I feel like even as a child, I don't think I think I used to really relate to stories when I used to find it plausible. Like,
Hmm.
say for example, superhero movies are great. I've never been like a Marvel fan, for example, or you know, like, I've never been like an action movie fan, because I feel like it's nice to watch as a one time and I can never think about it again. But I feel something that you can relate to, like, you know, you see a shopkeeper in a film that's similar to your
Hmm.
shopkeeper, or
Hmm.
like your corner shop guy or girl. You know, I feel like that stays with you more, because the if you're in a lived in environment where you can relate to it, then I think you win your audiences, and then
Hmm.
you can convincingly tell your story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm hearing you. I can just see how important it is to be so authentic to your own voice, and then you can kind of bring your story out there, isn't it?
Mhm.
Um, And I do feel, we may have different cultures, we are coming from different cultures, but the stories that we go through, the experience that we go through as humans, they're just so common. But I just want to ask this question. Is there anything about Indian storytelling that allows you to emotionally express certain concepts that you can't express through Western storytelling?
um I'm not sure. I think it depends on the way we look at the story. So, say for
Okay.
example, I feel like certain concepts,
Mm,
maybe it could be a relationship between an extended family and their
mm,
members, or, for example, like as I'm not saying, because I've seen very British families with very similar, Indian extended family thinking as well. So I feel like that sort of made me realize that a lot of stories are definitely very universal. It just depends on what kind of upbringing a person have had and what kind of life they've kind of chosen for themselves. So I feel like this is something that I'm really interested in, because whether it be an Indian story or a Western story, I feel like there's a lot of parallels that's so similar,
mm.
especially when it comes to you think about a mother son relationship or a
Yeah.
mother daughter relationship. It's very universal, and I feel like India cashes in a lot of stories on this certain emotion. You look at romance, you look at any stories of separation, it's very universal in that sense. Maybe the things would be a little different. Say, for example, if this film were to be set in a very rural village in Kerala, for
Mm.
example, maybe the way they dress or talk would be different. But if you were to set the same story or a similar thing in the outskirts of Birmingham, in a very sweet little village, it could be very similar too.
Yeah,
So
I
I think, I
completely
think it
agree
is a
with
bit
you.
universal more, is what I feel. But as I grow, maybe I might change my mind. But as of now, I think any emotion from a human level is extremely universal, is what I feel.
And I think that's a very valid point. And I feel that often when we are watching a movie and we just don't culturally connect to it, we think that it's not for us. But actually, if you just go on the deeper level, and like you said, if you just imagine this happening in your country, your people, within your community, you will be able to connect with it
Absolutely.
instantly.
I'll give you a quick example. So we had a screening in Florence for Footprints on Water,
Hmm.
as part of the River to River Film Festival, and Adil was there as well. I was there as well, and we had a fully booked. I think it was about a 400 seater. It's a festival run by Salvagia, and it was a completely fully booked show, and I think 95% of the people didn't speak English. They were like, from the core Florence community, and I was very nervous. I thought, it's a South Asian story. We're talking about the South Asian diaspora. I really wondered how they'd feel. And I kid you not, the audience reaction, like majority of the audience were in tears. They connected so much. We had a translator who translated the questions, and rarely Q&As go over 20, 30 minutes. And we ended up speaking for almost an hour, and everyone stayed back to talk because there was a lot of translation time in between. And
Yeah.
that really made me realize that I didn't have an Italian character in the film, and this
Mm.
was core Italian community group from Florence, and they really connected to it because they could relate it as stories of, migrants who were kind of rootless, who were kind of didn't really find a space of their own. So I felt like that emotion is what they connected with, and it didn't really matter what community they were from. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. In fact, that was supposed to be my conversation I really wanted to have with you, because you have traveled globally with your movies, isn't it? To different film festivals. Do you think the future of storytelling is global?
I mean, it's a very heavy question. So, like, first I'll start by saying, I mean, I should just express my gratitude to, to the film Footprints on Water for allowing me the opportunity to share the story that my sister wrote, and thanks to Mohan, our producer, for making it happen as well. And we never really thought it would travel this much, to be
Mm.
honest. Like, because I'd like. I feel like I lived a very simple life in the UK, and I still do, but it was a bit larger than life for me to visit US with the film. I went like 5 times
Wow.
with the feature. Like, we had a screening in Atlanta, DC, New York, and it was there in a couple more places like Cincinnati. It was in Austin, and I'd never even thought of traveling to the US before, because it was always been on my wish list. And I found it really amusing that not only was I able to take the film there, but I could connect to audiences from the US and see how they felt. And I feel one of the reasons why US appreciated it so much was because they could find so many parallels between their story
Mm.
and, a non-resident of Indian story outside of India, and how they felt. I think, in Footprints we explore how people come in expecting a larger than life, but it's not really that. And, like, especially when we moved to UK, I had in my I keep saying these in my interviews, and I'm sure if, for anyone who follows my interviews, it is a bit of a repetition, but I think Bollywood had really spoiled it for us. I really thought it's going to be that, there's going to be sports cars and it's going to be all beautiful and it's going to be wonderful. It wasn't, we went to Southall. I'm not bad mouthing Southall. There's great stories that's happening in Southall. I mean, thanks to Southall, it gave me an identity personally. I'm very grateful for that. But the life that we had waiting in Southall was completely different to what we had imagined. And I wasn't really angry at my parents. I just was angry at life in general. I was like, we were doing much better in Kerala. Why the hell did we move to
Yeah.
the UK? So I feel like um, any the screenings that we had in India, we had about, I think we traveled to around 8 or 9 states in India with the film. We also traveled to pretty much most of the, I think we had like 5 continent screening as well. So I found that in India, it was more sort of an educative purpose where they thought, oh, this can happen, like we should be a bit more
Mm.
careful. While audiences from the US, audiences from France, Italy, they were like, we see this, we know this. So I feel like we had a very unique fan club of the film, that one, they could relate so much and they couldn't agree more, and one who really took it from to their heart that I should be really careful. And that's what we wanted anyway. But I didn't really expect that this many people from the US especially would connect and could really, they, because in the Q&As they had their own stories. They said exactly how Raghu felt is how we felt when we came in. And I felt like that's really sad, but I really also love that they too felt represented in a
Mm.
film map, that their stories are valid too.
That's so interesting because that just proves the point that stories just connect us as humans. And if we can just find the insight to just see beyond, the language and the culture that we don't understand and just connect as humans. And that brings me to Footprints on Water. I mean, let's just go back a step and understand how you started this production company that you did, and what led to this Footprints on Water, because it has some amazing cast and I've seen the trailer. I haven't seen the film, but the trailer looks amazing.
Thank you.
So yeah, just take
Yeah,
us to
so
the
so
journey.
to clarify, Footprints wasn't produced by myself or our company. It's produced by Mohan Nadar, and the company's called the Production Headquarters.
Okay.
And it's a bigger film. I think it would have been a bit big of a fish for me to bite. Footprints on Water, because that we had a schedule in UK, we filmed in Kerala, and we had a cast like Adil Hussain, Nimisha Sajin. So it's a bigger film. So the whole concept of Footprints came from, my sister wrote the script, so she had been working on the script for quite some time, especially while I was in film school. So I went to University of Reading. I did film, TV, and television, and she was working on that script already. So we had this curiosity between me and my sister, that what would happen to, you know, the invisible community when they go missing, because we had family friends in Southall who chose to live an invisible life. They worked cash in hand jobs. They didn't have a visa status, and they were not really part of the census in the UK. So we really got curious on, what if somebody were to die from that community?
Hmm.
What if somebody were to go missing? You don't even have any document to prove that they're there. So that's how the whole story came about. And in effect, Footprints is a story about a father searching for his daughter, but they're all invisible. So when the invisible goes missing, it's a story. And we felt like through this story, we could show different communities that comes to the UK, why they come, how they survived, and what would happen. So I don't want to tell too much about it, because, do watch Footprints. We have a screening coming up in Birmingham on the 5th of June. And hopefully will come into a platform at some point. But that story we were so curious of, and we felt like it's a good story to really show the South Asian diaspora of people living in an environment like this. And I felt like we felt like it's really weird that there hasn't been many stories on this concept just yet. And we had a very special BFI screening. It was up in UCA Film Festival, and whoever watched the film asked the same question, that we know about these stories, we know this happens, why wasn't there a story on it yet? So
Mm.
I think that's where it all came up. And it wasn't a fast process. It was a very slow process. The writing took forever, the finding a producer took forever. We've made it, and it was completed in 2023, and now it's still not distributed yet, but hopefully it will be by
Mm.
sometime this year or early next year. So it is a very long process, but I'm staying patient and just happy.
That's amazing. But you know, I'm so intrigued by the fact that you are, you're making all these short films and social realism on invisible people, and that can just be such a broad category of, they might be people who have a valid visa, or but they can feel invisible in their own world, and they can connect to these stories. So what kind of conversations are you really wanting to inspire in people, what is it that you want people to talk about, and what kind of conversations do these trigger?
Yeah, I feel like I don't like any of my work to feel preachy
Mm.
ever. I feel like it's for the audience to decide whether they side with the characters or whether they don't. For example, Raghu's character in Footprints is a very grey character. There are things to like about him, there are things to hate about him. So it's not really. I feel like as a director, I would never make the audience feel a certain way for a character. I'd just be honest about this is this character. Like, you look at me, I'm pretty sure those who know me very well will have tons of good things to say, maybe tons of bad things to say. Maybe, I think I'm learning this art of being okay with not being liked, or being okay with not being agreed with as well. So I feel like in that sort of a perspective, like this short that I'm producing slash directing this month is about two teenage boys who are phone thieves and who are working from London, and they're going into the countryside to steal phones. But the film is very little about the crime and more about the kids they are and their innocence and their internal conflict. Because at no point I want to show what they're doing is right or wrong. I feel what's right and wrong depends on, what's your situation.
Mm.
And I'm not, judging somebody for stealing. I'm not stealing in a word in itself is a negative word. Yes, I get that. But unless and until you've lived that thief's life, I think it's very difficult to comment on. I don't think we have any right as other human beings to comment on that. So I'd say that, I try not to be preachy, and I try not to get the audience to think a certain way. I don't think my way of thinking should be influenced through filmmaking. I think filmmaking is pure in itself, where you show a story and the audience can decide whether they agree or disagree with it. And I think that brings about more conversations, and I think that does better for the world than if you were to
Yeah.
say this is wrong, isn't it? And I think that's more kind of brainwashing.
I mean, I find it so brave for you to actually not be tempted into going into the commercial space of the cinema, where you're just making films as, they're just song and dance and without a deeper message. There are just so many emotional layers there are about you. So how much, as a director, what is it that you go through when you are making a film like this, and how much does it impact you?
I think personally, I think it can get quite difficult.
Yeah.
But with Footprints, I know. So I have these regular conversations with my sister and Nita, and she sometimes says that, oh, it takes a lot out of me. Like I'm feeling really moody because I was working on this, or there was another film that we were working on called Salted Caramel, and she said I want to take a bit of a break from it because it's really affected me. I feel it affects writers more, but I feel as a director, especially when we're kind of going back and forth with ideas, and especially when I do the script read and when I'm sort of discussing it further, it can take a lot out of you. But what I try and do, because I used to work as an associate director for S82, when we're filming, I come with a mindset that I need to worry about how the whole day of schedule of the day goes about. Because in about 10 hours, 11 hours, we need X amount of scenes shot. So I just think of it practically that, okay, I need to spend time with my actors. I need to spend enough time before with my crew so they know exactly what they're doing. Because filmmaking is such a tiring and boring process. The process of it is so complicated that sometimes I think sometimes people forget the real world that we're creating behind the scenes does not look real at all. So when you're in that environment where, you've got lights on and you've got a camera crew, you've got about 50 people, 50 odd crew on set. And all I'm thinking is whatever I'm seeing on camera is to translate this into a reality where I'm depicting a reality. So in that scene, I'm able to not take it too much into my heart. But especially if there's a screening and then Q&A, those days I find it a little tough because I just feel like I feel helpless because yes, we've made a film about it, but have we been able to do anything about the policies, or have we been able to do anything about actual invisible people? No. But maybe it's a conversation starter. Maybe it's something that when you're on a bus and you see someone being really moody, or you see somebody being quite off,
Mm.
maybe stories like this can help you understand that just let it be. Not, maybe they're not having a good day, and maybe they've got bigger battles or bigger fish to fry. So I think these are the kind of emotions that we'd expect from an audience, but at the same time, it's for them to decide, if that makes sense. I went around it, but
No, no,
you know.
it makes complete sense because, being in this field as well in storytelling, I feel the same thing. If there's a book that we publish, or if there's a book that I'm writing, and I just feel that, people should really know about this, and people, this can make a lot of difference in their lives. But then there is also this frustration of how to get it to that level that everyone actually knows about it. So, and my next question is going to be in that sense, that
Mhm.
what are the struggles as well? I mean, I'm sure it's not an easy road for you. It's not been an easy road for you. But then, with limited budgets that we have, with these, but then you're working with your passion, you're working towards your passion. What are your struggles? What are the challenges?
I mean, there's a number of challenges. I think the main challenge is budgets, money.
Yeah.
Money definitely is a struggle. I feel like I wouldn't. I feel like, how do I say? I feel, um, especially stories like social realism, it's more difficult for it to get funded.
Which is just so,
It's just, but I
it's
feel like
just so
it's
amazing. I
sad.
mean,
It's
sad in
sad.
a sense, isn't it?
It's sad in a sense, yes, and also I feel like social realism is a lot about kind of lived in stories and representing more often, I don't usually work on something where I've not um I like to work on things where I've seen at least, or kind of have
Mm.
been a part of, or have that lived in experience with. There are a lot of grants, and there are certain labs and certain film festivals where you can go and pitch, but they're all very competitive. So I think the lack of funding available for social realism projects is definitely a struggle. But and also paying our own bills is a struggle too, when you've chosen this kind of a life. But I feel quite grateful because I think I'm okay to kind of venture into any type of job. Like, if I'm not directing, I've sometimes first AD, I teach quite a bit. So I run certain film and TV boot camps for Hertfordshire and Berkshire. I do some work with Resource Productions where I run some of their T-level stuff and swap courses. And I'm consistently telling people, if I'm free, that I'm even happy to come and work as a runner. I'm happy to drive people around, because I think, there is a necessity of paying bills
Mm.
and surviving and living by. And also there's this necessity of being true to yourself. I think, I'm very passionate about storytelling. I'm passionate about directing. Of course, I'm going to try do that, but I have to be realistic that it's not every day that I'll be directing, So I'll wait my chance and I'll wait my turn. So after Footprints, it took me almost 2 years, 2.5 years to do my next short, Words on a Page, which is currently started as festival campaign produced by Resource Productions. That was the year before in December. So it was a very long time. And then after Words on a Page, I'll be directing again this month for the two teenage boys' phone theft story. So it is, though I've done some commercials in between, I'm mostly working, writing, doing stuff non related to directing, but at the same time, staying open to the world around me, because I'm gathering stories. And I feel like, I don't think I don't put too much importance on myself. I feel if I happen to tell the story, if I happen to make a film, it's great. But if not, it's okay as well. So I'm just kind of, how do I say it? Just swinging by is a
I
good way
think
to put it.
it's just so important, and something that I always tell writers, you got to just build your whole portfolio. It's just writing just will not pay your bills. You got to become a larger person than that. There's the multiple things that you have to build around that to be able to survive within this industries, because creative field is just so addictive. You're just constantly thinking about it, isn't it? It's just doesn't leave you
And it's
ever.
very tiring.
It's
Writing is
tiring.
tiring, directing is tiring, and also, like, I do jobs that I wouldn't tell you what job I don't enjoy doing, but there are certain jobs that I don't enjoy, but you got to pay the bills,
You got to pay
and you need to keep busy. And I feel like, I think my mom tells me this all the time. She said, and my sister as well. They say it's important to sometimes just step out, see people, talk to people, and that kind of tells you some stories as well. And another thing that I try and do is I try and go to as many film festivals as I can. We're talking about Cannes. There's Cannes going on. I'm not going this year, but I try and go to, like, either Cannes or Film Bazaar in India, BFI London Film Festival, UCAF, or like LIF, whatever is local to us, because it's a great place to network with people, and I consistently meet like-minded people. So now that I've started to venture into production as well, I'm looking for people, collaborators, and just anyone really who's interested in bringing stories to life, because I think filmmaking is not a one person job.
Mm.
You like, it's like raising a child. You need a village, and I'm very open to, so whoever I talk to, I'm like, yeah, let's collaborate in whatever way we can, because I think it's very difficult if you think you're just going to grow by yourself. You need like a whole sort of, like a village of people who wants to be a part. So I'm exploring it. Let's see how it goes. Maybe it might turn out terrible. Maybe it might turn out great, and we can bring ourselves more stories into the world. So fingers
Yeah.
crossed. And I mean, just continue working hard and see where that takes us.
And you're working with youngsters, training them. So, what is it that you tell them? I mean, I'm sure this is one of the things that you tell them, but what is it that you tell them? There's a particular myth that you break for them because they are full of these ideas and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like working with young people. I mean, I like working with anyone. I think for me, story is what's more important. Like, say, for example, working with somebody like Adil Hussein,
Yeah,
like he's a seasoned actor, and working with him was so brilliant. Like, I always tell all my director friends that work with Adil. He's just so fantastic. He's very
he's
easy to work
amazing.
with.
I'm a huge fan, by the way.
Yeah, I shall tell him. And like, and also I feel like an actor like Adil really elevates the story for you. And I've also worked with people who are quite young. Like for Words on a Page, I worked with two young boys. Again, I'm working with two young boys. I think for me, directorially, I'm a huge fan of capturing um, behaviors rather than, I'm not concerned of whether they stick to the script
Hmm.
or whether they stick to actions. I would never tell my actor to cry or smile or stand here or stand there. Usually in my blocking, which is where we decide where the actors would go, in my blocking, I just sort of tell them, this is what's happening in the scene. These are the dialogues. Stick to it if you want. If not, I'm okay with it too. And I just let them play it out. And I usually have my DP with me on my rehearsals. And then after once the rehearsal's done, I talk to the DP and I say, how about we capture it from here, or what do you think? And that's how the conversation come about. So I try and use an approach where you never tell the actors you need to stand there. Maybe rarely, if we needed a close, we would say, okay, this is your frame. But in shorts, especially with social realism, it's very important that you capture them without telling them exactly how to be. So then you naturally get the nuances that people can easily relate to. So that's my way of directing. I never, it's more about kind of getting them comfortable in a way. They bring out characteristics that they didn't know they had within themselves, and I
Hmm.
try and give as much backstory. So it's all our conversations about what the character is like and less about what's happening in the scene, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think that just allows them to bring themselves into the stories in it.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of AI around nowadays, and it's a lot easier to probably turn your imagination into a film or a story, visually, in a visual way nowadays. So, how much of that challenge, or how do you see that AI into the film industry? Do you think that's just going to grow into a positive way, or do you think that's just ruining it?
I think it's too early to comment on AI because so much is changing and it's so
Mm,
fast as well. But I'm very, and I keep saying this whenever I'm asked about AI. I feel like I'm such a I'm such a novice in this field. Like I think people with tech background can comment better. But my small understanding with my interactions with AI, which is mostly just talking to ChatGPT about, what are the top 10 film festivals happening in the next 6 months that I can attend, or I sometimes ask questions like, um, you know, um, I ask about location suggestions, any studios with like underwater facilities. So these are the kind of stuff that I ask ChatGPT. I think it's dangerous if it's starting to create scripts turning around, and
mm,
if it were to, I'm not a huge fan of using AI to recreate visual scenes in a film, which I think
okay.
is unethical. I'm not a huge fan of using AI to write scripts or replace any jobs that's already there. I think already for creative industries, it is a difficult field. And I understand there would be various departments that need to retrain themselves. That's there. But I feel like it's fair to allow them that time to retrain. And instead of, one day, no more poster designers, for example. I think that's something that I have a.
Do you not think that in a way it also allows you to creatively explore things that you may not have been able to do? I mean, there's a 20-year-old who has an idea and he doesn't have to go to this whole struggle of actually pitching the idea to somebody who may find it as enthusiastic as this person does. And maybe there's just one scene in this youngster's mind, AI just gives him the liberty to see if this is something I enjoy doing, if something just see.
Maybe so. I mean, I feel like if it depends on that 20-year-old, if
Mm,
they're just using it. But I feel like, I mean, reading more about AI, because it like from an environmental perspective as
yeah.
well, to create a video, to generate that, it does take a lot on the system. And I just feel like, is it absolutely necessary? Like, if you can maybe, have a pitch deck that you would naturally make. And because when you start to create, I feel like if you're using it for a pilot sense, that okay, this is what it would look like, maybe it's a little better than people replacing scenes in films with AI generated videos.
Mm,
I feel like right now it's a very tricky sense. Like, I don't use AI to write, for sure. I think I'm very sensitive with what kind of information I share with AI, because I know it's still learning and we don't quite know. I think it's too early to comment on how it can survive or how it will be in the future. But having said that, I do think AI is helpful in the logistics style of things. For example, scheduling, or
yeah.
kind of creating the paperwork side of things could be made easier
Like a
with
good assistant.
like a good assistant. Yeah. And like, especially when it comes to location breakdowns, or
Mm,
when it comes to creating things for camera mapping or light planning, all those elements for sure I think could be helpful for their respective departments. I think it's only when it's like really on your nose, and say, like, I'm a bit confused about this whole, because I worked on this action film last year, and they were doing 3D mapping of the actors, whoever were part of the film. And they said they had it in their contract that they may 3D map and create a couple of scenes. I thought that was a bit cheeky, because what if you end up creating 5 scenes, but that could have been paid labor for these actors. And you're not just talking about that one scene, it's where it's paid labor. You're talking about the camera department, you're talking about maybe 100 odd people. That's their livelihood, because movies, when commercial, can generate a lot of money, and already crews are not paid enough. So I feel like if you were to utilize actors this way, then you decrease the number of shoot days. You're already earning quite a lot from a commercial perspective. Idea is everyone should be growing together, and why should the crew take a back seat and the makers? I think the gap between the profits and what goes to the crew uh, narrows, and I think that's the problem that
mm.
I have. Not narrows, widens, and I think that's the problem that I currently have, or many people in our industry have.
Okay. Okay, now let's just go back to the whole technical side of behind the scene. Let's say we have somebody who's watching this podcast and somebody has a story. It could be in a form of a book, because I'm in publishing, so I'm thinking book, or it could be a story, and they want to make a short film out of it. So, what are the steps that goes
Okay.
go behind it? And
Yeah, I mean,
how
I can
long is a
comment.
short film? I mean, I didn't know how long the short film
Yeah, I
was.
mean, I can comment on it because I do a lot of sessions on script to screen.
Yeah.
Because I teach, like I said, for these companies, but I also run my own one-to-one sessions, as well as certain classes on filmmaking. So from a teacher perspective, I can definitely break it down in a very quick way.
Yeah.
So say you have an idea. I think first things first, just write a treatment. By treatment, it's like maybe a page on what exactly happens.
As in, an idea is just right.
Yeah, just
Treatment is
just
like a
write an idea, like
synopsis,
a
like a,
treatment, sort of like, um I don't know, for example, two best friends
okay.
out in London, they go to a coffee shop. So just to get it out of your head
Okay.
that this is what's exactly happening. And then I do a bit more research around it. So is this plausible? Would this happen? Like, say you're talking about a school teacher's life. Would this happen in a school teacher's life, for example? So maybe talk to any school teacher friends you might have. If it's not a lived in experience for you, research as much, and then you turn it into a script. So I use stuff like Celltext, which is a free software where you can write your script, because you need the format. If you were to pitch it to somebody, you need a little bit of a format. So then you write a script, and then you kind of, from there, you get it started. I think the hardest part is getting it made, because you need money to get it made.
Hmm.
But the way I'm doing it, I raise finance for making projects, like in a very small way, sometimes self fund myself. But naturally, because economically I don't come from a background with a lot of money, it's very difficult to just think, oh, I like this area, I'm just going to make it. It doesn't really work like that. So there's a lot of conversations and talking around it. So once the script is ready, maybe if it's something very small, pitch it to, I don't know, like a BFI short film fund, or maybe try get a producer attached, or try get some actors attached, and then you start from there. And once your idea is confirmed and you've got some funding, and then you just put some crew together and you make it. In a way, it is a longer process. I don't think this short time is enough to kind of explain what happens. But it all starts with an idea and it starts with a script. And like I said, you need collaborators. It's very difficult to just make it on your own. And I find that that's where I go to all these networking events, or in general, you can even go on LinkedIn and connect with people. I get tons of LinkedIn invitations, and my friend, he makes fun of me. He says, "You just accept everyone," and I'm like, "Yo, because I don't know, I might work with them in the future. I'm just gonna accept everyone, and if I find anyone interesting, I reach out to them and stay connected. I may not be the best at responding on LinkedIn, but I'm connected. And if there is something, like I post if I'm looking for crew, then people apply on LinkedIn, say, like, for example, some crew members for this short, I found off LinkedIn and Instagram that I posted. So I think it's important to build that community, because I think it's very rare to grow alone. And I think you have to be really open to collaborating. It could be that you meet somebody, a DOP, and the DOP says, "Oh, I have a camera. I can come out the weekend and shoot with you." There you go, you make a film. And there are people making films with phones these days as well. So I feel like just kind of work around it, play around with it, and just make something happen is what my
And
advice
don't
would be.
expect like instant results. Like it's not going to happen in 2 months or 6 months. It's going to
Yeah.
take years of perseverance, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm learning the art of just trying to be patient. It is difficult. Certain days I'm just like, oh, screw this, I'm done with it. But certain days you realize, because I don't think I have another option than to be patient. Because I know I have filmmaker friends who are extremely successful, who tells me stories about how they worked on something for a decade. And there are brilliant films that are out there that people were working on from 15 years ago, and there are films that they've made in a year as well. So it's not, I think it's less about the timeline, it's about when the audience digest it. So being patient is probably the only way forward.
But what is that one moment that you're waiting for in your career? I mean, we all have that vision of that one moment where you think that, yeah, I've done it. I've reached where I have reached. I mean, for me, it would be like if my story was turned into a film and I can see that so many people it's actually reaching out. For me, that would be my one moment as well. What is that one moment for you?
Oh, it's such a lovely question. um I feel, not that I'm a bitter person. I feel that just because of all the rejections and things that's not happened in the past, I think I try not to. Of course, I naturally have these manifestations and visions of just doing this for the rest of my life. That's there. But I feel, for me, my ultimate aim would be to reach a space where I just feel light from within, like that I'm just feeling light. And because sometimes I think I am an emotional person, and I feel like you talk to a lot of people, you're constantly cooking projects, and sometimes you just don't see the end of it, or sometimes you feel like I've done all this work and it's not materializing, and sometimes you feel like this happened too quickly as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like my aspiration would be to be able to continue directing, to make stories, and just wake up feeling light, where I'm not feeling under the weight of the past or under fear of the future, and just feeling in the present. I think that would be my ultimate
Do you
aim.
ever visualize yourself holding the Oscar?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I think from I used to have a vision board. I don't do vision boards anymore, but I used to have this vision board where from like a Cannes Grand Prix to Oscars to BAFTAs to everything you can think of. It's all there, but I don't really know how that happens. I think if when the universe is ready,
I
maybe
was about
maybe
to
it will
ask you,
happen.
what is it that you tell yourself? What's that one quote or a line or a book that you've read that stays with you? Because we all can go through it. I mean, creative field is such a field that, and it is a lonely field in a sense that you got to just motivate yourself every single day to go through the whole challenges and then see something beautiful come out of nothing.
I know. I know. I mean, there isn't a quote as such, but recently, my one of my best friends, Bonnie, he has this book called The Power of Now,
Okay.
and we just on one of our holidays when we were traveling, I opened that book and I read first few chapters on the importance of staying in the present.
Hmm.
Kind of, like I feel like sometimes, I submit something to a lab, or I submit for a job, or I message a producer or a financier, and I'm like, would you be interested? Until they respond, I overthink. I'm like, okay, should I have said it differently? But The Power of Now really talks about just screw it all and just live the moment. Like, if you're having a coffee, enjoy the coffee. I'm with you now, Ekta. Let me enjoy this time with you. So I think that's something that stayed with me. Only recently I came to know about The Power of Now. But if I'm being honest with you, these books are great, but there are moments where you think, screw this all, it's not working
Yeah.
as well.
We all have
So
that
I think
moment of doubt,
it's just
isn't it?
beautiful to kind of I feel like some days I'm feeling extremely motivated and I feel like I'm going to be everything, and there are days I don't. So that's why I'm feeling like maybe a motivation would be to work towards a state of mind where I'm calm or more zen.
What has failures taught you?
Failures has taught me, I don't know, like a lot. I mean, I have to say, this is a very interesting podcast, and I love
Well,
your questions.
well, I like to go into
Yeah,
depth,
I
being
think
a very spiritual
failures.
person
No,
myself.
I think failures has taught me that it's taught me that it's okay that things don't work out the way you want. Of course, in the moment of that failure, it feels like it's not fair, and it shouldn't have happened that way. But naturally, as with everyone's life, you feel later that, oh, I'm glad that didn't happen then, because this wouldn't have happened. So I think failures has taught me to kind of understand that if something bad were to happen, okay, it's happened, maybe it's meant to teach me something. And also I've now kind of learned that sometimes I feel like, oh, it's so unfair, I didn't have to go through that pain, or it's so unfair, like, why did this happen to me, or why didn't this happen to me? And I think it's sort of just made me sort of realize that it's all part of being human, and from a perspective where I'm trying to tell human stories, maybe it's important I experience that. And I think more than failures, it affects me when those around me are affected by things. Like, for example, it drives me nuts if my sister's upset, or if my mom's upset, or if, Raj or Pradeep or Bonnie, all these people that are in my life are upset. And I think that's also something I'm now trying to learn from, because if I can't do anything about it, I can be a listener
Hmm.
and I can support, but maybe, just understand that everything has its time, and if something's not happening now, then so be it. And in the end, it's all about just realizing for me that whatever I achieve, maybe if it's a BAFTA or Khan or whatever I don't achieve, it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone is going to bother really thinking about, oh, remember that time Nathalia did this. I don't think so. And so I think that kind of helps me stay at peace, if that makes sense.
Interesting. And what has success taught you?
I mean, I've got very little experiences.
The place where you're sitting, Talia, is a space where most of the people would actually be wanting to sit, right?
Oh, thank
Not
you.
everyone has the chance to
Thank
work with
you.
other
I
and
know,
also to
I
make these
know. There is
amazing
a ton.
movies.
Yeah, there's a ton to be grateful for. I mean,
Yeah.
success has I don't know. I've never thought of this answer. I think maybe success has taught me, like, say, maybe a good example is maybe some of the awards Footprints
Hmm.
got, for example. I feel like that moment, it felt amazing. But then I was really surprised that maybe a few days later something stressful happens, and then it's almost as if that didn't happen. So I feel like success has taught me that whatever good things happen,
Hmm.
it's just as good as another bad things happens, or a bad thing is just as bad as another good things happen. So I feel like success and failure has taught me that we're always on a limbo. So I'm trying to not take success too much to heart, as well as failures too much to heart. So in that way, if I'm in sort of that middle space, then maybe nobody can upset me too much, or nobody can make me too happy, and I can just be in that middle. Does that make sense? I mean, that's the
I
idea.
think I've just put you on that philosophical thing. I
No,
mean,
but
you're
but
giving
again,
me some
I'm not a
amazing
philosophical
answers.
person. Yeah, but I'm not a philosophical person. I'm not a spiritual person. I feel like a lot of people can, like, I don't want anyone to think that, oh, I'm zen, I'm this. I'm not. I'm just like a very
You
flawed
don't.
human being,
We
in
all
this
are.
world.
We
That's
all
it.
are.
That's it.
But we
Yeah.
all are trying to make most of what talents and space that universe has put us into. And coming back to your storytelling again
Yeah.
now, South Asian stories. How do you see these stories breaking those stereotypes and actually blending and working for beyond, for all cultures?
Mm.
What can we do more to not to kind of break this mental barrier that where South Asian stories will only be read by South Asian readers or seen by South Asian viewers? What can we do more?
I think being more authentic, really.
Hmm.
Say, for example, like, I think a good example is, I feel like a lot of South Asian representation that we see, like starting with a fake Indian accent. I don't think anybody talks like that anymore, to be honest. But I get it. Maybe some do, but I just feel like it's very important for the industry to really be real and be authentic to what's happening right now. Because I feel like there's a lot of stories that are being told from 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, which is fine because there is a space of that. But when all South Asian representation is that old, then I think it becomes a problem.
Mm.
So hopefully, like, with some of the storytelling that I'm trying to show, or the people that I'm working with are trying to show, is breaking that stereotype. And I feel like, like, for example, like an Indian dadi smoking, for example, it's there. And like, I worked on this concept where one of the commissioners said, oh, I don't think it would be common for the dad in that household to smoke up and get high on weed. I'm like, but it's there, it happens. So why is it that because they're South Asians or is an Indian diaspora, you're painting a different picture? Like, they're cultural and they're strict. Not all of them are. So I think we need to have, I think right now there's a lot of stereotypical stories out there, but if you mix it with what's also authentic and what's happening, then you realize that the bridge between a South Asian story versus a universal story is actually a lot less.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Um, I'm also very drawn to this whole concept of co-writing, co-curation. And I feel if there is a way that two cultures can come together and probably write a story or make a film or just work to in storytelling, um, I feel that's the way the world is now. I mean, look at our society. We all have so many cultures around us. Um, what do you think is the future of co-curation in storytelling?
I think it would be excellent to
Mm.
have something like that. Like, you just look at India and UK, for example. Okay, just two different countries, but not just even looking at Indians in the UK.
Mm.
I'm talking about maybe, like, there are stories that I'm very curious of where maybe a group of people from the UK go to India to explore something, or they're working from there. Like,
Mm.
you go to Dubai and you see a lot of people, British people, working there.
Yeah.
Or when we were filming for Footprints, I was in Kochi, and in the hotel that we were staying, we had like a lot of Russians who'd been living there for like 15 years because they work in the Cochin naval base. So I feel like our universe or our world, it's so interconnected, and people are everywhere. And I feel like it would be very interesting to have this experience of maybe the British person who's always lived in Kerala,
Mm.
their story and their perspective of India, and combining the two countries. Like, I think that's why co-production treaties exist, or India UK co-productions are there,
Mm.
so you can bring these stories together. So I feel it's important when you're trying to tell a story that authenticity comes from some lived in experiences, and you also have that. If you don't have that, then you research that diaspora, that
Mm.
you research that element into it. So having 2 3 writers together on a concept, I think it's great. If they're able to work together, I think that's fantastic. And it would, like in Footprints, we have communities from Sri Lanka, we have communities from Poland, we have communities, from Kerala, from Punjab, from various different places. And it is all a collaboration of all communities coming together. And I think that also has a space of its own. So more people can connect to it.
Yeah, why not? Isn't it beautiful? Okay, if someone, let's say, years after we all have gone, and generations after, if someone was to see the movies that you've made today, what emotional memory would you want them to carry or connect to?
I think I'd like, if they were to, I mean, considering how much content is being made, if Footprints or
Let's
any
say
other
someone
projects I'm
ended
doing
up
comes
watching
out.
Footprints of Water.
Sure. I mean, I hope with my karma it happens because I watch a lot of old films,
Yeah.
So I feel like similar to, like, for example, you look at Satyajit Ray's film, you look at Andre Bazan's film or Franco Truffaut's film. It's rarely about the appreciation for the filmmaker, but more of what you see, what they've encapsulated. Thanks to Franco Truffaut, I know what happened. In 400 Blows, I know Antoine's story, and thanks to Satyajit Ray, like in Padar Panchali, the story of
Yeah, I love
Apu,
that one.
it's extremely interesting. So I feel like I think less about the story or the filmmakers or the actors, but more of this had happened and this was UK then, or this was India then. I'd want them to get a sneak peek, maybe, with AI and robots and things like that. Maybe the future is completely different, but for them to get a sneak peek into this had happened, or this is how the invisible life in London were, or maybe things may not even be that different then, So I'd just love for that emotion, for them to get an opportunity to see the true truth in what used to be, rather than just two people running off into, mountains and having a dance sequence.
Yeah, I understand that. So we're going to come to the last part of the segment, this podcast. So I want to invite you to go into a memory or share an object, a picture, or whatever it
Oh,
may be, um,
okay.
that connects culturally with you. And that also is a huge part of your storytelling journey. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, I know of the section.
Yes.
So I did have a long think about it. So I think what really helps me with my storytelling, what connects me, or it's more than an object, it's an action. And the action is wherever I am, like whether it be in, because I spend a lot of time between India and the UK, though I've been in the UK a little bit more recently. An action that I do to really help me with my storytelling is this process called grounding, which is whether it be in your garden or your front garden, or you go to a park or wherever, you take your shoes off and barefoot you stand on grass or soil or ground. That really, really helps me, because sometimes, especially if I'm moody or if I'm too happy or whatever it is, if I'm grounding myself, I feel like it resets me.
Mm,
It makes me, I close my eyes and I kind of imagine me connected to, there's like nothing between me and the universe. So like above me there's sky, below me there's ground, and I feel part of it at a very human level. I feel really authentic to my own self. So I kind of it's like a reset button for me. And then usually I say like 3 4 sentences to myself that, okay, today I'm going to get this done, or right now I'm thinking of this. And kind of remind myself, okay, what can I see? I see this tree. What did I just eat? I had a croissant, for example. So it really grounds me back into the reality of now, and I can just really be authentic and work better from there. So I think it's this moment, it's a feeling. If I'm in Kerala and I'm on the grass, I feel like still I'm on the same ground. This world is connected in the fact that we're all standing on the same ground. And I think that really, really helps me. I've been doing this for about a couple of years now. It really helps me, I can't tell you, especially with my mental health and just staying sane. So yeah, this is my
I think
memory.
that's just so powerful. And I love the fact when you said that, I could actually just imagine you just standing there, the sky above me and ground below me.
I'd even do it
Um,
in winters, to be honest, because sometimes I
yeah,
do it less in the winters, but I do still do it because I just feel like, especially if it's cold, even if it's raining, if it's for a few seconds, I
yeah.
still do it because it resets me.
And it just brings you in harmony with the nature, isn't it? You're just
So,
in sync with nature, with the
yeah,
universe. It's just part of it.
yeah,
And yet a
absolutely.
very important part, and yet not that important that you just become, it just becomes about you. How powerful.
Thank you. But yeah,
And
because I didn't realize this was such a big part of my life, and I feel really good to honor it here, because I think it's really helped me
yes.
over the especially the last year. It's helped me a lot, and I think it deserves to be shared in a space like this.
Yes, I know. I know. We always talk about the art, and we hardly ever talk about the artist. What makes the artist think about the art and the way the art is presented? And this is exactly what I wanted to do through this 1 hour time that we had. And I'm glad I've been able to bring those facets of your personality out there, because it's just so important to understand that the people who are behind the camera, who are making these films, um, it's it's not an easy job. It's something that they have to push themselves to do every single day, and yet they choose to do it because it is just so important to stay authentic. And that is exactly how I see you, Natalia, just being a very authentic
Oh,
storyteller.
thank you.
So yeah,
But honestly, this has been one of the most enjoyable interviews of my life, I have to say, because you really made me think a lot, especially the connections with childhood, etc. And I'm really glad that you decided not to share any of the questions beforehand in the interview,
I
because I
don't
think
like
you,
to do that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think you caught me from a space of being true to myself and being true to the answers. And I'm really glad that, I think it's been a very reflective hour for me, and I think we could talk for days. Like you're so brilliant to just talk to,
Oh,
but I thank
thank
you
you.
for asking me these questions and having me on your show.
Thank you so much for joining us. And that was the AIM Storyteller Spotlight, a space where we speak about authentic storytelling and also about how cultures can just bridge our boundaries, go and help us just connect as humans, which is what stories should do. So, see you at the next episode. And this is Ekta Bajaj signing off. Thank you so much for watching us.
Thank
Thank you.
you.